Good morning, everybody. Greetings from nice and warm North Carolina. I wish. Actually, I am recording this. I'm sitting in my office on Monday in the frigid temperatures of Illinois. Either way, hopefully you enjoyed this day. I will have seen you tomorrow and asked about it, but regardless, hopefully you enjoy your day off today. So today what we're going to be talking about, you should hopefully have gotten from Mrs. Reedy a set of Cornell notes, plain Cornell notes, that all you need to do is, as this video goes through, fill in the blanks. If you notice, the heading's all done for you. The only thing you need to do is pretty much add your name. Make sure you do it in ink, and then fill in the blanks as you go through. I'll give you some ideas for questions that you can put on the left-hand side. But you'll have to add some of those on your own. And then, of course, a summary at the end. And make sure to be thinking about the EQ when you're coming up with your summary. All right. And then pretty much you'll have a set of notes that you can use on this week's binder check. So let's jump into this thing. What we're talking about today is managing conflict. Those of you who had me last year, this may sound familiar because this is a topic that AVID brings up frequently. So it's possible that you may have seen this PowerPoint. I've made some slight changes to it and added some things, but it's something that everybody deals with, and that's kind of one of the key things that we're going to be talking about today. So as we go through, our essential question: what are the main strategies I can use to manage conflict in my life? And we're going to pretty much give you 5 different conflict styles and ways of managing those styles. All right. So first off, conflict. Well, what is it? Conflict is definitely a natural part of life. I'm sure you guys are already well aware of that. Learning about how to manage conflict is definitely going to help in a number of ways. First off, it's going to help your relationships. Whether that's boyfriend-girlfriend relationships, whether that's teacher-student relationship, whether that's mom-dad relationship, managing conflict will definitely help with your relationships. It's going to obviously help with your home and school environment, of course, depending on what type of conflict you have. So keep that in mind. Your family life, brothers, sisters, things like that, moms, dads, like we mentioned. Managing conflict is definitely going to help with those. And how you interact with your peers and your friends. And maybe not even necessarily your friends, just the people around here at the high school, because there's a lot of people who are your peers but may not actually be your friends. And there may be some conflict that comes from that as well. Alright, so a simple definition of conflict, well, it says when 2 or more people want different things. Right? Very simple definition. Obviously, if you look at the picture on the bottom right here, the blue guy wants the rope on this side, and the red guy wants the rope on that side. More than likely, your conflicts are going to be slightly more complicated than this. But that's the basic of the idea. You want something, somebody else wants something different. How do you work out that conflict? A lot of times we use the wrong strategies to deal with conflict, and it ends up becoming a much bigger deal than it probably needed to be. One of AVID's goals is to develop you as a citizen, develop you as a human being. So, how do we make sure that you can manage your conflict? How do we make sure that you do what you need to do correctly and in a way that nobody gets hurt, and nobody gets incredibly upset that they do something stupid? Alright, so, moving on. There are 4 types of conflict. These may sound familiar. Within people, so intrapersonal conflicts, so conflicts that you have within yourself. Maybe you're struggling with grades, maybe you're struggling with a family situation inside that you don't want to share with other people. So you're struggling with something inside. It could be a disease, it could be a family member that has a disease, and how you're trying to cope with that. Right? There's so there's an example for you. You decide if something is right or wrong. That lovely little conscience in your head. There's conflict between people, so interpersonal. My example, you and a friend getting into an argument. Absolutely. You and a teacher arguing over a grade. You and a parent arguing over a curfew or whether or not you can do something. All right. Within groups, so intergroup, obviously, working in a group at school, group can't make decisions, maybe playing on a team, you have conflict between the ball hog on the team and the rest of the team, you know, how does the group deal with that? And then between groups, so intergroup, the two teams playing the sport, you know, one group versus the other group, all right? Conflict is all around us. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. But it doesn't always have to be a bad thing. You know, maybe off to the left there, you could jot down a question about like, how can conflict be a good thing? You know, any ideas, any thoughts? Maybe you could add that to your notes here in this section. How could conflict be a good thing? Think about that a sec. All right, so we're going to take a look at some conflict styles and outcomes coming up next. All right, and there's many, many ways one can approach conflict. Decisions, as you can see, regarding conflict are based on the importance of the issues and or the relationship. So how important is the issue that you're having conflict with, and how important are the people that you're having the conflict with? You know, those things really factor into how you're going to handle the conflict. Because if the issue really isn't that important, you're probably going to approach it a different way than if the issue is very important to you. In the same regard, if the issue is not very important but the people are, yeah, you're probably going to approach that differently than if the issue is not very important and the people are not very important. You get the picture, all right? The issues and the relationships play a big role. So, how you handle conflict with a friend is probably very different than how you would handle conflict with your teacher, I would hope, right? How you handle conflict with your siblings is probably very different than how you would handle conflict with your parents. Again, I hope. Hopefully you don't, take a pillow to your parents when you have a conflict, as you might do with your little brother or sister. I don't know. I'm not in your family, so I don't know what you do. All right. The way in which we handle conflict, as you can see, will directly affect the effectiveness of the conflict's outcome. So how we handle it determines what we'll get out of it, basically. All right. So 5 different types of conflict styles. All right, here you go. First one, avoiding, which you can probably have a rough idea of what that is, but we'll break it down here in just a sec. Accommodating, competing, compromising, and collaborating. Those are the 5 different types of conflict styles that we're going to talk about, and how to basically manage that conflict. All right, take a minute. All right, if you are jotting this down, maybe jot down on the left side, a question, a thought. Which of these styles do you think, off the top of your head, is the one you use the most often? I think one of the easiest ones to use is avoiding, but it's not always the best thing to do. We'll talk about that here in just a sec. Alright. So, hopefully you've got that written down. And of course, as I think about this, you could easily pause this if you needed more time. So, yeah, here we go. So we're taking a look at avoiding first. Alright, so this is when you simply avoid the issue. You aren't helping the other party reach their goals, and you aren't assertively pursuing your own. This works when the issue is trivial, or when you have no chance of winning. It can also be effective when the issue would be very costly, or when the atmosphere is emotionally charged and you need to create some space. Sometimes issues will resolve themselves, but hope is not a strategy. In general, avoiding is not a good long-term strategy. So breaking it down a little bit more, the issue and the relationship are not that important to you. So you would use avoiding if the person you're in conflict with isn't that important to you and the issue is not that big of a deal to you. All right. Rather than make it into a big deal, you avoid the conflict and you let the other person have what they want. You give in a bit. Is it ideal? Probably not, but is it worth getting into a big hustle over this issue that isn't that big of a deal? Probably not as well. Alright, so think about this. Is there any situation where avoiding would be the best bet? Where avoiding would be the way out? Keep in mind, though, as I mentioned a minute ago, hoping that the issue will resolve itself by avoiding it is not the way to handle it. if you have some say in this conflict, and you have some, importance, the issue at hand is important to you, avoiding it and hoping it will resolve itself, probably not the way you want to do it. That idea of hope is not a strategy. That's a good point. All right, the next one, accommodating. All right, accommodating. This is when you cooperate to a high degree. Did I say cooperating? I said, if I did, I meant accommodating. Sorry. It may be at your own expense and actually work against your own goals, objectives, and desired outcomes. This approach is effective when the other party is the expert or has a better solution. It can also be effective for preserving future relations with the other party. So here's the thing, the relationship is more important than the issues, right? So as this thing, as I just mentioned, maybe the issue, is not that important to you, but the relationship is. So you give in a bit. You give in order to salvage or keep that relationship. All right. Can you think of a time when this might be the way to handle it? Maybe you're working on a project for school, and the person knows a little bit more about you, and they want to do something a certain way. The person's important to you, the project's important to you, and you know that they can do a bang-up job, so you give in a little bit. You let them have their way in order to make sure that you come up with a quality project. That would be one example I can come up with. All right. The outcome may not be what you wanted, but you know what? You kept the relationship, and you have kept the product at the end. All right. Next up, competing. All right, so this is what we'd probably call a win-lose approach. So you act in a very assertive way to achieve your goals without seeking to cooperate with the other party, and it may be at the expense of the other party. This approach may be appropriate for emergencies when time is of the essence, or when you need a quick, decisive action, and people are aware of and support the approach. So, breaking it down a little bit, the issue is more important than the relationship. So the issue at hand is important to you. It's something that you're not willing to waver on. Whether or not that person that you're having conflict with gets upset with you or gets angry with you is not important to you. All right. You want to make sure you get your way at the risk of upsetting the other person. All right. And this could lead to the loss of a friend. Example of this that I think of is, a friend asking you to do something that is not right. There are all sorts of examples out there, and you basically assert yourself and say, no, I'm not going to do this. And if that means you're not going to be my friend, well, that's the way it's going to be. So what's right, what you need to do, and you're not going to let the relationship get in your way, right? Not always the best outcome that you want. It's not that ideal win-win situation. It's that win-lose situation. But you know what? Hopefully, you're sticking to your morals and you're sticking to your to what you want. All right. So take a minute, if you would. Think about a question maybe for these last couple things that you put down on the left-hand side. Where could you use this competing type of conflict style resolution? Maybe you could come up with an example that you could write in the margins. I don't know, something to add to your notes. All right, moving on. All right, so compromise. So typically when we think of compromise, I don't know about you, I think of compromise as kind of the win-win. Everybody gets what they want, right? Well, not really. Compromise is more the lose-lose scenario because you don't get exactly what you want. You have to give in a bit in order to, salvage the relationship. So, this is the lose-lose scenario where neither party really achieves what they want. This requires a moderate level of assertiveness and cooperation. It may be appropriate for scenarios where you need a temporary solution or where both sides have equally important goals. The trap is falling into compromising as an easy way out when collaborating would produce a better solution. We're going to talk about collaborating here in just a sec. All right, so compromise. The issue and the relationship are important to you, but you are willing to give in order to work out a solution. All right, so the issue and the relationship are important to you, but you're willing to give in order to work out a possible solution. All right, so this can sometimes, as we mentioned, be a lose-lose situation where no one really gets exactly what he or she wants. So, I don't know if you can think of an opportunity where you give in, you don't get exactly what you want, but it manages the conflict. I think a lot of times we talk about compromise, but again, the issue and the relationship are important to you, but they can't be incredibly important to you, otherwise you would probably use a different style. All right, collaborating, last one. All right, this is number 5 for us. This is when you partner up or pair up with the other party to achieve both of your goals. It's how you break free of the win-lose paradigm and seek the win-win. This can be effective for complex scenarios where you need to find a novel solution. This can also mean reframing the challenge to create a bigger space and room for everybody's ideas. The downside is that it requires a high degree of trust, and reaching a consensus can require a lot of time and effort to get everybody on board and to synthesize all ideas. So, as described by what I just read to you, this is not an easy way out. The issue and the relationship are important to you, and you're willing to take the time to work it out. It's not easy. Collaborating like this is never an easy way. Oftentimes what ends up happening with collaborating is that in order to come to that win-win scenario, you end up coming up with a completely different solution than what you thought you wanted, both you and the other party. So to get there, man, it is not an easy task at all. All right, but if done correctly, man, you and the other party, you walk away, you're both happy, you're happy with what the solution was, you're happy with what you got. All right. So those are the different 5 styles of basically managing conflict. If you take a look at the lovely Cornell notes, I don't know if you noticed in the PowerPoint, but as I went through, there were some things that were underlined, and they're here underlined in your notes as well. Maybe going back through with a highlighter, if it's underlined, it might be important to highlight as well. Coming over here, making yourself some questions. Over here in the margins, making yourself some comments. Starring which of the 5 different types of conflict do you think is, most frequently used by yourself. However you can interact with these notes and show the tutors that you've gone back and looked at these notes, I think is an important thing to do. All right, maybe go back, do something in a different color. I don't know. It's up to you. And as you get done here and you look at the summary, think about that EQ. Which of the strategies do you use most often, and which one or ones do you think is the best to use? Of those ones that we talked about, is avoiding the best way to handle your conflict? Are you stuck on the I hope this will resolve itself, or are you all the way to that collaborating where I think me and the other person, we can work something out together? It's a challenge, it's tough, I won't lie. All right, but I'm kind of curious to see what your thoughts in this summary are. All right, with the time that remains in class, I would make sure to go through, finish up these notes, make these a nice high quality set of notes that you can use for tomorrow's binder check. Don't forget, because of the snow day on Monday for you guys, today for me, you'll need 9 notes this week instead of the 11 that we were planning. This can definitely be one of your sets of notes. And I think that's it. Make sure to be kind to Mrs. Reedy, who's been keeping track of you guys these last few days, and we'll get into tomorrow. And make sure to get your planners updated and your binders in good working condition. All right. Keep in mind, I'm not going to be able to print you anything note-wise, so if you're going to do any electronic notes this week, you're going to have to be able to share those with the tutors that come in to grade binders on Friday. All right. You can't send them to me because I have no way of printing them out for you and getting them to you. All right. If you have any questions, feel free to either text me, my number's in the email, or you can send me an email. I can't guarantee that I'm going to be able to respond to a text right away. If I'm in the middle of a training, I might not be able to have access to my phone. So either way, I will try and get back to you as quickly as I possibly can. All right. If you have any questions between now and tomorrow, like I said, let me know. I hope you guys have a good rest of your day, and I look forward to seeing you next week. All right, we shall see you guys. Have a good one. Bye.